true. If you want to be familiar with some database system examples, you have to work with one of them at least. In this class, because it is a fundamental course, it is not possible for me to explain about a practical matter. But in the future, if you want, we can arrange a practical course to learn these software applications, to learn, in fact, database systems, software applications. And Mr. Abir Jabbar, in response to your request, I have to say to you that if you be present at the class, you can understand which sections are more important and which sections have. If you keep your attention in these classes, you can understand which sections are more important and which sections can be ignored. By the way, your presence at the classes are so important, so you have to uh, check my explanations, so you will learn about this issue. Purpose of database systems. To understand the purpose of database systems, consider part of a university organization that, among the other data, keeps information about all instructors and other sections of at the university. If you want to keep this information, for example, on a computer, you have to use a database. At the next step, you have to design a methodology and a routine to be accessed those data, that data by your users. But how is the possibility of uh, accessing to your data? You have to design how it is possible to add data related to new students, to new instructors and or other courses into the database, how it is possible to register students for courses and generate class rosters and assign grades to students, compute grade point average or GPA, and generate transcripts. So I want to explain for you the solution for management of a database. So firstly, as you can see here, you have to design the operations and the processes in your database. It means that what will you consider to be accomplished in your database? What routines will be necessary for your database system? After designing and writing down your required routines, you have to go to the next step to implement those capabilities. For implementing the capabilities of your applications As you can see here, it is needed to employ the programmers to develop the application programs to meet the needs of such application. For example, in this example, if you are working with the data of a university, it is needed to employ a programmer to develop the application. New application programs are added to the system as the need arises. It is another point. For example, suppose that a university decides to create a new major. As a result, the university creates a new department and creates new permanent files. So, based on your need, you have to update the structure of your database sometimes. This typical file processing system is supported by conventional operating system. Uh, I don't want to study in deep this section because it is a very comprehensive subject and I have to explain it more in the future. Keeping organizational information in a file processing system has a number of major disadvantages. Just as a brief explanation, I have to say to you that we can consider two systems for managing the data. The first one is files, and the second one can be data. The first one is file, and the second, there is a problem. I type and then it will be missed. The first one is file, and the second option is database. If you are working with databases, it is very structured. It is very regular. And I think it is important to say that the database is very better structured system for storing and retrieving your data. But files is an old system that in the past the users were using files for storing and retrieving their data. But files have not any structured system. Here we can count some main disadvantages of using files instead of database. If you want to use files instead of databases, this is what you can see in this page. They are the main disadvantages for using files. First of all, data redundancy and inconsistency. The second disadvantage is difficulty in accessing data. For the first one, when you use files, the data can be stored redundant and maybe by affection from an outside factor, it is possible to make it inconsistent. So it is not a good condition. While when you use databases can provide to you a method for saving data appropriately. The second disadvantage for using files is difficulty in accessing data. It means that when you are using a database, you can easily access your data, while you cannot easily access to your data in case of using files. The third disadvantage is data isolation. Because data are scattered in various files and files may be in different formats, writing new application programs to retrieve the appropriate data is difficult. The fourth disadvantage of using file system is integrity problems. Another disadvantage of using files is atomicity problem. The concept of atomicity is related to the concept of atomicity. Atomicity is meaning that when you have something that cannot be divided to something else, it is something like atom, because you know that the atom is the smallest part of a material. So a computer system, like any other device, is subject to failure. Sometimes your system may fail in some cases. In many applications, it is crucial that if a failure occurs, the data be restored to consistent state that existed prior the failure. It is the behavior of the system in case of any problem. Another problem of using file system for storing your data is concurrent access anomalies. The problems related to concurrent access to the files. Sometimes maybe when you use a file system for accessing your data, there exists some access concurrently to some data, but in the database, it's not possible to create and imagine that the concurrent access in database and the database system is responsible for managing your accesses. Security problem is another problem related to use file systems. In fact, you cannot implement any type of security in the file system for saving your data. Instead, in the database, because there is a structure for managing your data and storing and retrieving your data from the database, you are able to implement the security for your database. Another concept in this area is view of data. A database system is a collection of interrelated data and a set of programs that allow users to access and modify these data. A major purpose of a database system is to provide users with an abstract view of data. That is, the system hides certain details of how the data are stored and maintained. What are the models of data? We have some models for data, for example, relational model, entity relationship model, semi-structured data model, and object-based data model. Each of them has its specification. The relational model is used in the database management system. In fact, in this type of model, you can see the relational model as the collection of tables which represent the data and relationship among those data. So tables have the advantage of the relations among them. And when you use a relational model, you can work with tables inside a database. You can work with views. You can work with queries and something like that, and other possibilities. But in the entity relationship model, you will describe your data using some entities and the relationship between each of two, two by two, I mean. This model is using entity relationship model, uses a collection of basic objects like entities. So in this model, you will use entities and the relationship among these objects. In the other model called semi-structured data model, the specification of data where individual data items of the same type may have different sets of attributes. This is an this is in contrast to the data model. Some data types like JSON, XML, and so on are the examples of semi-structured data model. The final type of model is object-based data model. Object-oriented programming has become the dominant software development methodology. This led initially to the development of a distinct object-oriented data model, but today the concept of objects is well integrated into relational database. Okay, what about the relational data model? In the relational model that I described in the previous section, data are represented in the form of tables. Each table has multiple columns and each column has a unique name. Each row of the table represents one piece of information. So that's why I have concentrated on this model because it is the most important model, and from now on I will continue with this model because it is more important. Data abstraction. For the system to be usable, it must retrieve data efficiently. The need for efficiency has led database system developers to use complex data structures to represent data in the database. Since many database systems, many database system users are not computer trained, developers hide the complexity from the users through several levels of data abstraction. So if I asked from you why the developers hide uh, the complex, while the developers use data abstraction, you have to explain that they want to hide the complexity from users through several levels of data abstraction to simplify users' interaction with the system. The first level Sorry for the delay. I had a call and I answered it. To simplify the user's interaction with the system, you have to consider some levels. First of all, physical level. The lowest level of abstraction describes how data are actually stored. The physical level describes complex low-level data structures in detail. Ali Hussein Naima says that to prevent destroy database by users. Um, Sometimes yes, because if you disclose your data clearly to the users, maybe because of the lack of uh, complete knowledge from the users, they try to interfere to your data and maybe they destroy the data, maybe. And Bushra Sayed says that to simplify users' interaction with the system. Exactly, because one of the main purposes of the database management systems is that the users should only see their desired data and the other details should be hidden to the users. It means that you have to hide the detailed information and the unnecessary information. You have to hide these from the users. The users should only see what they need. In the logical level, the next higher level of abstraction describes what data are stored in the database and what relationships exist among those data. The logical level thus describes the entire database in terms of a small number of relatively simple structures. Although implementation of the simple structures at the logical level may involve complex physical level structures, the user of the logical level does not need to be aware of this complexity. This is referred to as physical data independence. Your physical data independence. That is a concept related to advanced database. Okay, and here just we have to know that database administrators who must decide what information to keep in the database. Okay, so the main person to uh, make a decision about what data should be considered and what information should be kept and on the database, the real person is database administrators. Use They use the logical level of abstraction. In the view level, the highest level of the abstraction describes only part of the entire database. Even though the logical level uses simpler structures, complexity remains because of the variety of information stored in a large database.